We've been doing the same thing, practicing 2 days on, 1 day off, so nothing's changed for us.
Hey Mike, can I ask you about Malcolm? To have a guy that's been in your defense for as long as he has and been as impactful as he has, how important is that considering you guys won't have Jim and it is going to be
So the majority of the guys that are playing on defense have a really good feel for what we do. That's one of the reasons we had success this year. Obviously Malcolm and even Devon didn't have as many game reps, but he's been here for a long time. And Jim's system takes a little time. So every year they've continued to get a little better. Jokingly, I had close friends of mine that said, why don't you just let Malcolm call the game from the field, the old Joe Namath days. But it's a little more complicated than that, but it certainly helps to have those guys like Malcolm that are playing.
Malcolm's gotten all those All-America honors, but what about Devon? I know you've mentioned how good he's been this season too. What do you think has been his strongest avenue?
Well, again, he's been here a long time. He gets it. He just couldn't get on the field last year with Amon. Obviously, Amon was good enough to make an NFL team, so he didn't get a lot of reps, but he's really kind of a throwback from I'm just going to stay here and keep pushing forward, and it worked out well for him this year, being a key contributor. He's made a lot of plays for us.
Do you have any update? I know last week you said Jalen Foreman's doing well. Do you have any update on him or Dominique Richardson?
Jalen would be fine. We're not letting him practice as much as we are the other guys, but he's doing fine.
A lot of times these bowl practices are a good time for young guys to kind of get more involved. Has anybody stood out from that aspect?
Well, we've practiced. Our young guys have scrimmaged between 30 and 40 plays every day at the end of practice. So they're getting considerable amount of reps. If you put a pencil to it, the time we finish bowl practice, the young guys will have got a spring practice. And they're doing fine. There's a number of them out there. They all make mistakes, and then they all make some plays, which is what's going to happen. But they're getting really quality work.
We saw you last week. You had just started divvying up defensive responsibilities in the aftermath of Jim leaving.
Mm-hmm.
How was that going?
Great. Essentially I've switched from offense to defense. I haven't watched offense at all live. And I've done defense every day, and I'm very pleased. I don't think the players even have noticed him not being here, the way that we've divided up responsibilities, and I think they're practicing very well at this time.
Did you say you were going to wait till you got down in Arizona to decide who's going to call plays on defense? Is that still the case?
That's correct.
That's still the case?
How much of the benefit is it to have coaches like Joe Bob Clements and Tim Duffy who have been around as long as they have when you have the DC?
Continuity is important, right? Everything. It is for Oklahoma State, let's put it that way. So if you look on that side of the ball, Joe Bob's been here 10 or 11 years. Hammer's been here 6 or 7. Duff's been here 8 or 9, maybe. Greg Richmond is new. He's been here a few years. They just brought him in. So all those guys have been here a while. So it helps. When Jim left, they were able to go in the room and divvy up responsibilities and know what to do.
Who kind of takes over the lead of the linebackers in Jim's absence?
Coy's been coaching them all year. Yeah, he coaches them in practice every day and meets with them. Jim doesn't coach a position. Jim is not a position coach. He's a walk-around coordinator.
So what about Coy then stands out to you? What's really, because he's a guy that is fairly new to the program.
He's bright, energetic, understands the game, has a good relationship with the players. He just needs, in order to get a start at this level, he just needs age and experience. But he's coached them all year long. He met with them last spring. As soon as Shane left, Shane was our GA that coached our linebackers. Jim's never coached a position. So the transition from the players wasn't that big an issue because the players met with Coy every day anyway.
What about Jordan Burton? I know he's a guy who's a former player.
He's in recruiting, and he's around and watches, but he's not on the field coaching. But he's a former player that's done really well, and as I selfishly stockpile them in our organization, he's one of those guys.
Mike,
from a distance. Obviously, I don't see them much. I don't cross paths with them much. We don't go head to head with them in recruiting much. I only know what I see, like you guys. When Coach Kelly came in, I think that, and this is hearsay in our profession, he really built up their athleticism and their roster. As I said a couple of weeks ago, he unfairly and non-justified took some hits by being in the playoffs and getting beat by 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns, whatever it was. And he's continued to get better and better and better. And as I said day one, I have seen several of the top 8 teams in the country in detail, and they deserve to be 5th in the country. And you can only get to 5th in the country if you have good talent. And he's done a good job there. They have good players.
Mike, this time of year, these guys are done with finals. It's not, you're out of your normal game week and Christmas is rolling around. What are some of the challenges of this time of year, and how have you learned to navigate them the last 16 years?
So they don't have a lot of free time even to this day. They have training in the mornings. We practice, meet mid-mornings, practice here, afternoon, late afternoon. Then they have responsibilities. Then they get time at night. Now they can go do anything they want. We just don't have any issues here. I mean, this system runs itself. I've said it, I'll say it again. I could walk away for a month and they'd be just fine without me. And we have good young men that understand responsibility. I'm not saying they can't make a mistake. That can happen, okay? But there's 138 of them, and we don't really have issues. So they understand the importance of nutrition, sleep, proper hydration, training, all the things that give them the best chance to play well, they do. We don't have bed chat. We don't police them, they police themselves.
Mike, the first weekend of bowl games has kind of taught us that old lesson again. The team that really wants to be there tends to play the best. I mean, there were some big upsets this last weekend, and it was from teams that really wanted to be at the bowl game. Have you got a feel for how important this is for your guys?
I think that's fair, and these guys have practiced really well. We've had, by the time we get to the middle of next week, we will have had 10 heavy practices, which comparable to would be 6 to 7 on a normal bowl cycle. And these guys practice hard every day, and they go on 2 and they're off 1, and they come back and they practice hard again. So between the small distraction we had with Coach Knowles and what would be out of school, I mean, I don't really see an issue.
Do you think you've also maximized the time for future working the younger players?
Yeah,
we've had a lot of that.
Yeah, we just went over that earlier before you got here.
Yeah.
I think that they will have had what would be close to an entire spring ball scrimmage total number of reps by the time that we get to the middle of next week. Because they're getting between 30 and 40 a day. You take that by 8, 250-ish, somewhere in that number of reps. And in a spring, when you're talking about scrimmage reps, there's not any young guys, which would be your 3s, that get 250 reps.
Mike, I meant to ask you about this last Wednesday, but how has Todd Bradford changed the recruiting approach here?
Todd's been fantastic. You know, the best hire I ever made was Rob Glass. And now with the transition of the portal, open transfer, potentially NIL, whatever that is, the recruiting position that he holds might be the second most important position on our staff. That's just my opinion. And he's fantastic. He's a former player, but former coach that's recruited on the road for 30 years, so he understands, and he can evaluate talent. So he has his staff that he governs and controls them like he's the head coach, and he does a great job.
The Athletic did a deal on personnel people. He got mentioned in that. And the comment that they featured on him was, Oklahoma State always gets some guys that you don't think would be in the running to get, but it's the diamonds in the rough. They hit on more diamonds in the rough than anybody else.
That's true. I don't know if anybody's had as much success with the Rodriguez's and Brock Martins and guys like that we have. And so Todd understands that and understands our philosophy of staying within a 4-hour drive. Really, of Stillwater is kind of where we want to be. That's our decision we make. We've done it now for 15 years, and he gets it. So we give him a plan, and he pushes forward.
Mike, who'd you say polices bed check?
We don't. I don't have bed checks.
Players?
They police themselves.
Has that always been like that here?
Started about 2 years ago. Well, longer than that, but then we still used to have bed checks preseason and bowl season. But I stopped it a couple years ago, and this year I don't have any bed checks.
Why'd you stop it?
I just think they're old enough now. If they want to play here, they take care of themselves. If they don't, then that's their business.
Mike,
It's almost like coaching in the NFL. If you play hard, you get a job. If you don't, we cut you.
2 more questions for Coach, so
Mike,
we got to move on.
with the spike in COVID cases affecting sports, NFL even as well, have you guys taken any or discussion of any precautions just to get through these last 2 weeks?
Yeah, so we're all trying to do the best we can to stay away from each other, as you can tell. I mentioned it to him. I tell my own kids. I don't get around my own kids because that's where I got it last time. Kids they don't pay attention to these kind of things. I'm concerned with what's happening right now. I'll be honest with you. Very selfishly, we hit a home run with getting through football because we all know that needs to happen to keep people afloat financially. But I'm a little concerned with what's going on right now with these numbers that you're hearing about. I read yesterday 220,000 new cases in one day. That's a lot. So I'm trying to stay away from people. We're talking to them about it with our staff, but there's a certain percentage now that are getting it that have already had a shot and already had a booster. So we just do the best we can.
Has there been any hesitation of allowing them to go home for the holiday because of the risk?
Yes, but not really. I mean, I don't get many calls from moms anymore, but if I tell them that I'm not sending their kid home and then I get to go home, I have a hard time with that. So.
Mike, on Colin Oliver, you anticipated he'd be physically ready to compete this fall, Colin Oliver. From a mentality standpoint and a maturity standpoint, what did you see from him?
Well, I'm shocked that he was physically as ready as he was to be in that box. It's a tough man's game down in there. And mentally, I'm even more surprised that he's never flinched. He should be tired. He practices hard every day. His motor runs. I don't know that we've ever had a freshman perform as well as he did this year. Now, I know we had different positions, but he's in a different world down there. And he's not slowed up at all. He's been really good.
Thanks, guys.